off the defensive line onto, surprise, more defense, the cornerback position. Eric, let's start with someone who you love, who is, a lot of fun and possibility with Jahdae Barron, the Thorpe Award winner from Texas this past year. It's really hard to put on the tape and not just really, like you said, fall in love with him, like his game, the versatility, the tenacity, what he can do in a multitude of ways from a schematic standpoint. Just a really, really, really fun player on a really good defense this past year.
Yeah, he's a stud, draft crush of mine for sure. He's got that versatility. As you said, he was used at corner, on the boundary, in the slot, as a nickel. He did a little bit of everything. Very smooth transitions, discipline in zone and man. He's just super cerebral. He's a heady type player that is going to make an impact on day one. Not just from a production standpoint and making turnovers and getting his hand on the ball, but also, communication in the secondary. As you see him break up a pass there, he can do a little bit of everything. And so when I think of a guy like him, and while he did, his arm length is kind of under what the Bills typically like. I just think about him on the boundary on early downs. And then when the Bills go to those dime looks and Cam Lewis comes in, you put Barron there. You put Barron there, and you can move him near the line of scrimmage like they did against Michigan and some of these plays where they're trying to shut down Loveland, and him, he was in there making some big plays and just absolutely shutting that big tight end down. He was a weapon for the Texas defense, played all over the field, and you're seeing a bunch of those plays. And man, I would love to see him in the Bills defense. Again, it would add to that creativity that we want to see from the defensive staff, having a guy like Barron on the roster.
My fourth bullet point in my notes evaluation is, and to read and quote, alignment versatility, outside, slot, box, capable of covering different body types. For example, manned up against Loveland versus Michigan, good trail technique, able to read the hips, and a nice rep of catch technique and scooch. And then I put a hyphen. I put dime linebacker, fun stuff capabilities.
Yep,
that is,
right
yes, this is one of them. He's in that A gap. This is late in that game against Michigan. What I love about this one is he drops out on the snap and he changes his stem based on what he sees from the route. And then he gets his eyes on the QB and makes a beeline right to Loveland. Boom. That's where he changes the stem. And then watch the finish. Look how low he gets. Yeah. And just his shoulder goes right into Loveland's like hip or gut. There he is, number 7. Again, I that tight end, the number 2 coming out of the snap, change your stem a little, look at the QB, beeline, make a play. Like you said, he's so smart. He's so cerebral. He's got really good zone eyes. He reads routes and the QB's eyes. He triggers accordingly. He lets the quarterback's eyes lead him while still also being responsible in his zone or assignment. Here's a nice look at the man cover. That's the one that I mentioned earlier in terms of trail and reading the hips. Like the collision point, let him get by you, and then you're just in phase. He's got the athleticism. He's got the physicality on top of it. Good ball skills, good hands, ability to punch and rip through to cause PBUs. He's tenacious, good zone and spatial awareness, and smooth and smart in coverage. You showed that one rep against Florida with the double move. He has a similar rep against Clemson where he honors the initial move from the receiver, but he's watching the QB and sees that Klubnik isn't loading up. So he immediately bails out of it, takes a good angle, locates the receiver, cuts him off, and rides him into the boundary. Yeah, very similar to, he doesn't slow turn like he does here against Florida, but the type of intelligence, recognition, the body like control and ability, and look at the fluidity and just how smooth, how smooth and instantaneous that transition is. He slow turns there. The one against Clemson, he just stays kind of hinged and drives angularly with it. He ticks so many boxes. He's such a fun player.
Yeah, 5 interceptions, a 34.2 passer rating allowed last year. He's a stud, draft crush of both of ours. Again, I would like to see him in the Bills defense. I have obviously a first round grade on this guy. I think he's one of the playmakers in this draft, and just again, you see him making the tackle there.
That one, he does it with one arm. He throws his body in front of Edwards, and then here he comes out of the right side of your screen against number 20. He throws the right side of his body in front of Edwards to slow him down. And then with one hand, he picks the ankle just like while he's getting
He's so
grabbed. That
good.
rep is so nuts.
He's so good.
Dude.
I love the guy. I would love to get him. I think with how he ran and his film,
Yeah.
he gone. He ain't making it. He ain't making it to 30. I would love to see him in the Bills scheme. I don't think it's gonna happen.
Yeah, corner is interesting. I think you've got Travis Hunter and Will Johnson as the 1 and the 2. I do think there is some movement and shaking potential for corner 3 through honestly corner 7, but I thought a big indicator after Barron ran that 40 and he didn't do any other workouts or drills at the combine because his agent was essentially like, "Hey man, you wrapped it up. You're done."
Yeah.
It made me think of the Senior Bowl last year, where Byron Murphy showed up and after he didn't even do anything. He got there night 1 on Monday.
Yeah,
and
first day.
it was announced that he wasn't doing anything because they got word like, "Hey man, you're locked for pretty high in the first. Don't bother." So that's my thought. I don't think he's going to be available for the Bills at 30. I could see him. Maybe he falls into the 20s, but I think he's going to go as corner 3 just because of his versatility and what he can do. But like to your point, I would love to see him in Buffalo. Another corner up on here that we want to talk about, Mr. Darien Porter, corner out of Porter corner. That kind of rhymes a little bit. Darien Porter corner out of Iowa State. Length, I'll say you got to like as soon as I see him, I think lean frame, length, tall, the strides, and just how he operates. But despite that, he plays a little chippier and a little more tenacious than I thought, given the leanness to his body type and how he's built.
I mean, he does use his length too, especially if we're talking down the field. He's very good at closing the passing lanes and windows down the field, making the quarterback have to make almost a perfect pass up and over the top of him. Very smooth player in that bail technique. Very good recovery speed and hustle. One of the plays I'll show you is him chasing down a running back. I think it was against Iowa. Very good in contested ball, high point catches in those situations. But dude, the play that I really want to start with is this play against Iowa when it came to defending Leak, which is damn near undefeated when we're talking play concept. So top of the screen.
Everybody gets got by Leak. Like it happens to everyone. College,
right.
NFL, everyone.
Watch Porter on this play. So they're motioning the wide receiver and he comes down, thinks it's a run. He comes down like a bat out of hell, like he's about to set the edge right here of the defense. But quarterback runs play action and they're trying to leak out this guy right here. And this is Porter. I want you to watch him and how he reads run to pass and then just transitions. So now he's looking for the target, looking for the threat. Here comes the tight end and he just, drops back and then high points the ball there, attacks the ball for the interception. Just great work by him on that interception. Dude, this is Leak. Again, this play almost always works, but the awareness and understanding of what was happening pre to post snap on the run to pass processing, very good work by Porter on this interception.
To not only drop out and realize, it's a pass, like that in and of itself is like, oh, okay, good job. But the fact that he also picks up the leaking tight end, that he has the awareness to be like, to scan mid play and be like, okay, where's this going to? Bang, there's the guy. Let me pick him up. And then on top of it, the interception, like the ability to go up and get it. You said it, like that ability to make plays downfield and kind of restrict airspace downfield. The length shows up regularly and the ability to kind of go after and attack the football and constrict things downfield again, because of that length and his ability to stay in phase. It's a nice piece to his game.
Right. And I want you to watch this play. This is a hustle play I was telling you about. Bottom of the screen, just a run play by Iowa. Running back cuts it back to the top of the field, top of the screen, and just watch him get on his horse right here. Look at him stride it out. Obviously, he had great testing at the combine, and you're seeing not just the testing and athleticism and speed here and ability to open it up to 100 miles an hour, but you see the hustle. Like a play like that, that's the type of play that coaches love. And they go back on Monday morning in the film room. They show it to the entire team, that type of effort and hustle. And again, speed by Porter to chase down the running back and essentially save 6 points. Just a really good play by him. And overall, like I said, he's very good. We're talking plays down the field, closing it down. But things he does have to work on are some of his transitions are a little choppy, especially if we're talking comebacks where he's getting into that, into the body of the wide receiver, and then the wide receiver snapping off the route on a comeback or stop route. there's some separation there because he is so high cut, right? He's more of a taller guy. And then some of the run support stuff is a little weak, but of course he can always add play strength when you're that tall and that big. And so I still think he can grow into it, but was he 6 years at Iowa State? Like he was there for a few years. So I would like to see him in the Bill scheme. He kind of reminds me of Benjamin St. Juste, who we talked about in free agency, that taller type guy that has some press ability, some ability to disrupt the wide receivers route or stem. And I think Porter would bring a lot to the Bills defense.
Yeah, he only 4 years of snaps, but he's been there since 2020, nothing in 2021. So he's been here for a while. He was born in 2001, so he's 24 years old as right now from an age standpoint. You hit the two big negatives for me. The one was I think he's a willing force player and player against the run, but his lankiness, frame, and build does make him movable. But I commend him on some of them. Against Texas Tech, he's literally just loading up to try and shut down like counter. And he's loading up and barreling into tackles or guards. And he's getting popped, but he's giving some effort there. And then the feet and lower body stuff, like you mentioned, again, just because of how he is kind of built. He's susceptible to some underneath routes and in breakers and also comebacks. His feet will get crossed up and or stuck. And he can also get caught lunging a little bit. And I think his feet and hands can get out of sync from time to time. I do think it's stuff that can be cleaned up, mainly from that technical standpoint, but some of it I do think is not unavoidable, but it is due to just because of how he's built and, his frame and how cut he is and so on and so forth. But I'm interested to see, again, Randall, you mentioned how he can fly 4.340 at the combine. You see that on tape. You're watching him running down that play against Iowa. You watch his transitions and the recovery speed and the ability to get onto his horse. That speed plays on tape, and it really was reflected at the combine.
Yeah. 6'3", arm length 33 1/8. You said it, 4.340, 1.49, 10-yard split.
Crazy fast.
36.5 vertical, 10-11 broad. Yes, he tested through the roof. Only 14 tackles last year, 30 in his entire career. You heard Bean and McDermott and in their end of season pressers talk about, hey, you got to be able to tackle as a corner. Again, I still think that's where he needs to work on that area of his game. But it's funny, one of my notes when we're talking defending the ball down the field with his length and size, I said he's got a Dikembe Mutombo type play. He's always just like,
That's a good call, yeah.
3 interceptions, a 4.7 passer rating allowed last year, courtesy of our producer, Joe DeRosa, for compiling that. So he reminds me of some of the guys we looked at, whether it's Shaquille Griffin, and Benjamin St. Juste in the free agency show. But I'm not as high on him based on his film as I think most are. I have a 3rd round grade on him. I know there's some talks that he may be creeping into early day 2. I have a 3rd round grade on him.
Yeah, I gave him like a mid to late 3 just because of the frame and the run defense stuff. I guess I'm a big proponent of running the ball and having corners be able to tackle, and I'm waiting for someone to be like, yeah, but you like Asante Samuel Jr. But he tries. It's just sometimes he's not as technically sound. I just worry about that piece for his game and what that means at the next level. But from a pure coverage standpoint, there's a lot to like and there's a lot to be intrigued by. And then the age also creeps into it for me a little bit as well. Knowing that he's already 24, what does that frame look like if you're trying to thicken him out a little bit and change the body type a bit? And if you're not, how does he survive, from a run defense standpoint, kind of that force player aspect to his game, which is just, again, some of the questions I had, which is also like annoying because he's good in like, from a spatial awareness standpoint in zone, like as a cloud corner and you kind of passing things off and collecting. But then also if you're a cloud corner, you're going to have to be a force player on that outside. And then I'm like, okay, how do you, if you're spacing out routes well from a coverage standpoint, that's awesome. But if you have to be that force player and come up, how do you live? But yeah, a lot of intriguing pieces for him. Another person to be intrigued by at the cornerback spot, someone who I'm a big fan of, Mr. Trey Amos. Again, another Ole Miss defender. There's a multitude of them in this draft class.
If the Bills don't draft one of those guys, I'd be shocked because let's start off with like their scheme is so attack oriented. Like we talk about with the Bills scheme, there's a lot of slashing, defensive linemen. The coverages are very friendly when it comes to, help and all that. And something we're going to talk about with Trey Amos. That defense, like there are several guys on that defense I could see playing in the Bills scheme.
Yeah, very fair. And they were a well coached group. They had a good year this past year, and you're seeing it reflected in some of the prospects that they have in this class. First round potential, second, third round. A lot of good dudes coming to that squad. You have a nice graphic up here for Mr. Trey Amos. Also, if we mentioned too, Ole Miss has some great uniforms. They got a variety of
I like the
helmet
combos.
choices, uniform. Yeah, a lot of good combos for them. The big thing for me, and you have it right there, that elite zone awareness. I just like what he's able to do in terms of passing off and collecting, the ability to spin off, find guys. He's very sound in a multitude of coverages, man, off, press. He can bail a little bit, play some traditional zone, match a little bit. I think he gives you a lot of versatility in his skill set and play style and what he's able to do physically and mentally.
Right. Elite zone awareness. You said it. The ability and understanding on, I have to escort this guy to the next teammate in their zone. So there's no gray area. There's no overlap. There's a good overlap between the two zones. Quiet footwork, especially if you're
Yes.
looking at some of the man match or zone match stuff with him. Very high IQ, really good, ball production, quick hips in transitions. The way he reads routes, man, I hate comps. But when I watched his college film and I went back and watched Trey White's college film at LSU, the ability to read combinations, but not just route 2 or 3 man combinations, but the levels to them. When we're talking from the line of scrimmage to 20 yards on the field, his ability to immediately, as number 1 exits out of his line of sight and out of his zone, he immediately gets number 2. Okay, number 2 is not coming. Is there a guy coming across the field? He does it so well, and it just reminded me of Trey White. His ability to see the layers to the pass route combinations was just so freaking good with his film.
Yeah, I am right there with you. Like, you can watch him, they'll run cover 3 and his initial man leaves and you see him, or his initial man runs across, or you see him fall back off and catch somebody who's coming into his zone and threatening another spot. The zone awareness that he has, that ability to collect, pass off, carry, deliver, but then match. This one, you see the fluidity and that you mentioned that the quick hips, like he opens up, looking at the QB, just that snap, his ability to turn, whenever he speed turns, that snap, he's really good at identifying where the receiver is, getting back on top of them. And, that rep right there, a press rep, he's comfortable and effective in press. It's more of a soft shoe. Every once in a while, he'll kind of jam you a little bit and get a little physical, but that's part of the things we'd like to see him work on. This rep is really nice. The end zone angle is great. He's up there covering Mason Taylor, tight end. Watch him. He's in phase the whole way, eye on the ball. Watch him go up and just, I'm good. Just smack the hell
over
out
the
of it.
top.
Over the top. That athleticism, the vertical ability. I find him more often than not staying in phase with guys, and his ability on that one too, again, to be able to locate the football and make plays on it.
This is that overlap and awareness here, dude.
This one, crazy. So he's dropping back. Number 2, Lacey goes inside on that route. And let's just watch Amos, number 9, still dropping. He's drifting inside a little bit, but he sees the QB load up. What do we get again? We get the speed turn. He stays over the top, locates the football, goes up, makes a play. He's got several reps like that. He's got another one against I forget, but it's towards the top of the screen in the low red zone. His ability to just speed turn like that and get over the top and disrupt plays, it's wildly instinctual.
He's one of my favorite corners in this draft. I know Barron's a draft crush. His feet are just so good. We talked about.
I didn't know how you felt about him.
I love him.
I love him a ton.
I love him.
So,
you see this play here. You see him affecting the
Break.
quick game. We talked about that, right? Off coverage. He immediately recognizes route. He sees the number 2's diving inside. He understands that the number 1's coming behind it, drives right on it, and goes and gets the ball and breaks it up, man. Like, he's so good at doing that. And he really, at the line of scrimmage, you see him jam. Third down here. The Gators are trying to get it to the bottom of the screen. Look at the jam technique from Amos there with the inside hand, jams him up, takes him away as an option. And then the pass rush is able to get home. I love this kid. I think, again, I get Trey White vibes from him, not just from, a physical standpoint, but I'm talking from the shoulders up. He sees things so well. There are multiple times on his film where he had 2 vertical routes, going up the field. He splits them vertically. And then once the quarterback committed to throwing it to the outside guy, he would do that speed turn and go make a play on the ball. He just sees the the route combination so well, and he's always making plays on the ball.
I love, like, some of my favorite reps for him are when they're running cover 3 and there's 2 receivers to his side and you're getting a vertical from both number 2 and number 1. And like you said, like his ability to kind of ride the numbers and space it and be able to play them both and deter a throw. I'm just an absolute huge fan of his. I like this was the first one that really got on me, a little slant flats combination from number 2 and number 1. He collisions number 1, delivers him and passes him to his man, and look at him seamlessly just fall off and then slingshot a little bit, grab that hip, not enough to draw a flag, but enough to get position and get inside, gets in front and deters that throw. I am just a huge, huge fan of his game. I kind of just want to read through my notes. Comfortable and effective in press, mainly soft shoe, but can give you some true press with that actual jam there. I like that he's good on the left side or the right, boundary or field corner. Like we talked about, he's adept at passing off and collecting, doesn't lose sight of wide receivers when bailing. He doesn't allow them to get into his blind spot. Very good zone and spatial awareness and IQ, like we showed there. The ability to locate the football and make plays on it, or reading the wide receiver's hands and punching through. This one is a nice rep against.
This is Trey White stuff, man. This is Trey White stuff right here.
This is the one that was
number one
thinking in my head. Yeah.
Yeah. Number 1 across. Okay, now where are my eyes? There's no other threats to my side. There's got to be guys coming to my side of the field. And again, they lock it down. There's 3 of them going deep there. But you see how heady he is, man. He's so smart. You can just see it when you watch his film. And you can't say that about a lot of players. To kind of, say that, hey, this guy appears to be smart is one thing. But when you can see him thinking like you do on his film and where his eyes are and his helmet is, like, that is special, man. And then there's just plays like this, like you said, the ability to quickly turn those hips and make a play on the ball. I love this guy. I mean, I want to go back and watch more. He's one of, I always say, like, my draft crushes are my guys, because I want to go watch more film of his, and not just from this year, but next year or last year.
I knew, and I hate that we're like in lockstep with it, because people go, oh, of course you guys hold the show together. But I genuinely did not know this. I knew you loved Barron. I love Barron as well. Amos, I really, really love. And so it makes me very happy to know that you feel similarly. And honestly, one of my biggest questions, I had some change of direction questions with him, but I also wondered about his long speed. And then he came and he ran that 4.43.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell. And I have it in my notes here. I wrote, he's a smooth strider. And I said, is it because of that smooth stride that he looks like he's not running fast, or does he have true long speed questions? And so that 4.43 made me feel a lot better with his ability to kind of work vertically. And, again, like tying into, you mentioned it, and tying into what we talked about, with wanting guys who can restrict that airspace a little bit. He can do it from off. He can do it from press. I like when he's in press, he looks to stab that near hip or that shoulder when running. The ability to get a little physical at the release or in the stem or on breaks, but not be too grabby. I'd like to see him increase that physicality, like you mentioned as well. And just his ability to stay in phase through a combination of footwork and arm length. If we're talking about guys who can restrict airspace, who have a good size and build to their game and the intelligence to it, I love the hell out of him. I have a round 1 grade on him.
Round 1, yeah, same. 6'1", 195, 31 and a quarter arm length, 4.4, 340, all check. Again, the defense he plays in, when we're talking the coverage side of things, very reminiscent of what the Bills do. A lot of 3-over-2s, a lot of 2-over-1s, helping each other, a lot of help coverage. When it comes to the Ole Miss defense, again, first round grade on him. And there's just so many things I see in his game that remind me of Trey White, that, again, I don't throw comps out there lightly, especially when we're talking about Trey White and what he brought to the Bills defense, even early on, and what he ascended to before his injury. I think Amos has a lot to his game that is very reminiscent of Trey White.
Yeah, that rep that you showed with the 4x1 or whatever, and his number 1 is going across on the drag, and how he collects number 3 coming from the inside. It's reminiscent of what Trey did against Seattle during the COVID year, I think, on that big pass breakup.
Yeah. Chargers.
Chargers
that time.
And honestly, someone else too recently, Rasul Douglas did that a lot with Green Bay. That was something that we loved with him coming over. Like if they're running cover 3 or, cover 4, him not just blindly, oh, okay, my guy's gone. Oh, my guy's gone. There's nothing. Somebody's got to be coming back my way. Let me go. Let me locate him. Let me find him. Not a lot of guys do that and don't do it with that level of efficiency and effectiveness. And Amos does so. I'm very happy to know how much you like him. That's very nice. Another corner up on for us here. Surprise defense again, Mr. Maxwell Hairston of Kentucky. Someone who I posted like a couple plays from him, I think yesterday or the day before. A lot of Bills Mafia clamoring for Hairston potentially. I had a lot of people that are like, oh, love that you showed a play at Hairston. I love him. And I don't know if it's because of the speed or what, which is very real on tape and at the combine. But he has a bit of a hive here with Bills Mafia. And I understand why, given his playmaking and the speed and the juice that he brings to the game.
Yeah, I put why he fits. Dynamic coverage instincts, strong in zone, but very capable of men. They played a lot of zone. I'm talking like 85% last year for Maxwell himself. But when you looked at the reps where they did run man, and obviously the way he measured at the combine, when we're talking speed, he's very capable. And a lot of his skills that he showed in zone, you can apply them to man coverage. For example, if he's in off coverage, and that wide receiver is running towards him to get into the route stem, he didn't move. He would get his hands on the guy and make that guy work around him. Again, some of that press stuff, but more from the zone perspective, which we talked about when the Bills brought on Ryan Nielsen and Mike Pellegrino, how, they want to play more press and slow down and be disruptive of the opposing offense's quick game. I think Hairston will help in that regard. Very aggressive posture pre to post snap too. So again, that disguising, hey, looks like he's in a bail. They look like they're going to be dropping to cover 3. Ball snapped. He squares up, closes that door, as Pellegrino said, and again, plays some zone or plays cover 2 or Tampa 2. You see a lot of that in his game at Kentucky. But he obviously has the vertical speed and the skill set to match this, plays down the field, routes down the field. And you saw that a lot in 2024, but even more last year.
Yeah, it's a 2023 tape. I think 5 interceptions in 2023. Really productive, bit banged up in 2024. I'm in lockstep with you for a lot of why he fits. Also, a couple big things for me. I thought I liked his calm and clean feet. Quiet, as you like to say, but calm and clean feet. Very, very good recovery speed. There are times when he'll get beat. This one's nice, like kind of not to interrupt myself there, like the ability to space out what you see here. Okay, like where's number 2 going? Where's number 1? Looks like we're in cover 3 here. Okay, my flat defender is carrying the wheel. You've got an eye on that inside receiver. You've seen that hook the curl player is carrying him going upfield. The post safety's coming along with him. So as you highlighted Hairston's track, let me open up towards the sideline, break on the ball. Highlighting the ball skills, the zone awareness that he has, again, spatial awareness, a lot of similar themes that we keep talking about with these guys, because this is what you need to do if you're going to be in that Bills defense. Again, calm and clean feet, good recovery speed, athletic, I like when he's able to get back in phase, even when he gets fooled, especially versus vertical routes, due to that athleticism and speed. Good short area burst, can play left side or right side. He collects routes well in zone, also displays good zone spatial awareness. He's able to fall off guys, but he's also able to bait quarterbacks, especially as a corner, and he'll sit there and kind of wait, and then he can use that burst and that speed. Just that one there, just look at him just running down the field. Yeah. He's just so fast. The juice is so intriguing.
And you see here off the top of the screen, he actually gets a sack there on the quarterback. He's got the measurables. He does a good job in zone coverage when we're talking the spacing aspect of it. And so while he did play a lot of zone at Kentucky, I do think he has the skill set and traits to play more man coverage if the Bills do decide to kind of pivot just a little bit with some of the things and the tea leaves that we've been reading about the staff that they're bringing on, and the changes that we have slowly been seeing, especially late in the year for the Bills defense.
Yeah, and I think with that man coverage piece, I think he has the ability to play off. And despite, being kind of a smaller frame guy, I think he can play press a little bit because he will battle, and he does have some aggression to him. Obviously has to clean some things up because of the stature and frame, which will be a concern, especially if he's going up against bigger dudes. He really has to battle in that regard. But this is a good example too against this deep comeback. Watch him turn, you watch him open up, and just look how nice and clean the feet are. Chop, chop, chop. Let me go down and break like that. The feet are a really intriguing piece, that it's not long speed. It's good, clean feet attached to the long speed. That sort of combination that is extremely favorable for a corner.
super off coverage here. But again, watch the quiet feet. You know, as soon as that cushion, like he feels like that cushion's going to be broken, you see him go ahead, break down, and then that collision point. He's very good at the collision point of getting his hands on the guy and simultaneously transitioning and opening up. And then, of course, being able to run with the wide receivers. He's a guy that I have a late second, third round grade on. And again, I think a lot of his skills will transition into the Bills defense.
Yeah, I'm with you there. The 4.28 40 is extremely intriguing. I hate to be that guy. The frame stuff does concern me a little bit. I like really technically what he is, and part of me really wants to give him like, what did you give him for a grade? What day?
Late second, early third.
Oh, okay. So we are in lockstep. I'll say I had him as a mid day 2, so late round 2, early round 3. I watched his tape and liked him way more than I thought I would, and I came away wanting to like him even more. He's another one who I'm going to go back and watch more Amos just because I want to, but I want to watch more Hairston just because I was intrigued. The frame concerns me a little bit, and how that attaches to the tackling piece and what it can be. If he, and again, you could say this for so many guys and this would make him like a freak, but if he was like 195 and a little thicker, I'd be like, you might be creeping into the first a little bit. But yeah, very fair overall. Guess what side of the ball we're going to stay on, folks? Defense. But we're going to move to the safety spot. Someone who Bills fans have kind of been clamoring for a little bit, especially with the combine that he had. A tremendous testing performance for Nick Emmanwori, safety out of the University of South Carolina. For those of you who watch Disguise coverage, you know that I picked South Carolina in my NCAA 25 dynasty, and Emmanwori finished third in the Heisman and helped me win a national championship. So I am very partial to him, but I'm interested to see what your thoughts are on him overall as a player and his potential fit in the Bills defense.
Yeah, he's obviously he's an elite athletic guy. He's a freak. There's really no other way to put it. Very athletic defender, amazing closing speed, pretty good zone awareness, and obviously his length allows him to disrupt the passing lanes. And I really like him at the second level. I know he's got the speed and everything to play the post, but I like him in my head closer to the line of scrimmage, not necessarily because of this stuff, defending the run, but obviously matching up with tight ends, running backs out of the backfield. But I think that's where he shined the most. And so he's the type of guy, if the Bills were to bring him in, they're going to have to get creative with him. If we're talking about, hey, Cole Bishop is kind of better near the line of scrimmage. Taylor Rapp is kind of that guy as well. Are we going to go to more of the 3 safety looks? And this is, I think, where the conversation needs to be framed. You know, when we're talking Starks here in a couple minutes, you're talking Emmanwori, like these are guys that you want to get on the field, but where are they going to fit into the Bills roster right now? And I think that if the Bills were to go to more 3 safety sets, I think then it makes more sense to bring a guy like this in, or even Starks for that matter, because then, you know, you have a guy with his size and athleticism to basically do whatever you want. But again, typically these aren't the type of guys that the Bills draft at that position.
Yeah. So I would say you pretty much hit on everything for me. I like the player. I don't think the fit is clean with the Bills, especially right now, given their safety room, given where he excels. I think, and I don't want this to make it seem like he can't play deep. I think he gets worse the deeper he goes. And that's not necessarily meaning he's bad deep. I just think he's better in and around the line of scrimmage, being whether it's, you know, a hook to curl play or a curl to flat, like he is on that cover 3 rep where he drops underneath and gets that interception. I hate this one because he returns it for a touchdown and they called a stupid penalty on South Carolina and it ended up making them lose this game. I just like him in and around the box on the line of scrimmage. Almost a lot of the things that I say for Cole Bishop are what I would say for Nick Emmanwori, which is awesome, but also like, what's the fit? How much redundancy is there? And then even just for me with him as a player, I don't know how you felt about this. I don't feel like on tape, I don't feel like he played like the athlete he tested as. I feel like you didn't see enough of, for this dude who's, you know what, 6'3", 220 plus pounds, runs this 4.3 40. I didn't feel like I was seeing that on tape. I didn't feel like I was seeing this guy who was able to take on blocks and, I didn't like him getting him cracked and pinned inside by smaller
Right.
receivers. I didn't feel like he played to the size and frame and speed that he tested with.
So one of my notes on areas of opportunity he needs to work on is that he plays heavy. He plays heavy footed.
Good way to say it.
He looks to move very well, but it's heavy. It's not he's not light on his feet. And I think
Yes.
some of that is I can't explain it, because then when you watch him test, you're like, why aren't we seeing that more on film?
Yep.
And I thought overall he was more reactive than proactive. And so whether it's a route or the run hitting the perimeter of the defense, he was half a click late more times than not, and it would put him out of position. But of course, he can make up with it with his athleticism and speed. So I was a little underwhelmed. I think he's a solid athlete, a great athlete, but I don't know how he would fit in the Bills scheme. And I just expected, bigger splash plays from him. He had 73 tackles last year, 4 interceptions, a 37.1 passer rating allowed. Solid numbers, but I didn't feel that on his film. Like even the interception that he took back there is like, okay,
that's
Jordan
a
Poyer
bad
used to
throw
do
by
that.
the quarterback. That's a bad read. Like it's not like he made some amazing play.
Right. And so I was kind of underwhelmed with his play. And so I don't think he's a fit for the Bills. I do think he's going to get drafted rather high. I have a 2nd round grade on him, but from what everyone's talking, there's a chance because of the testing, maybe he moves into day 1. I don't know. I'd be shocked if the Bills were interested in this guy as a safety in their scheme, unless they're going to do something crazy. Yeah. And again, start to play, instead of Taron Johnson as a nickel, start to play more 3 safety looks. That is something that is possible, but until they do that, I can't say they're going to.
Yeah, similar to what we talked about for D-line stuff. Yeah, I'm with you. I feel like he works better as a big nickel or an apex in the NFL, who can do like, okay, maybe he'll get 10 snaps deep a game. But if you're looking at the PFF, like snaps by alignment, everything's coming in the slot or box. Like I see him as more in a day and age in the NFL where, so much of the safety position has been blended. I see him as more of a strong safety and more of a box safety and as a down safety. And again, I don't think that fit is ideal with the Bills. And when you add on top of that, the heavy footed comment from you is great. You watch him move and it looks like, are you wearing like ankle weights? Like why? Like it just seems like he'll jump or he'll shuffle and his feet seem like they like, I don't know, like there's extra gravity turned on and they like sink him down and bring him down. And for as athletic as he is, I really thought the man coverage piece varied with him too. Like you could see him cover some tight ends, but you got really varied results against wide receivers in a variety of ways. And I just for all that he offers, I also have a 2 on him, which may make me feel crazy if he gets taken in like the top 15, like a lot of people are saying, or he might. A lot of people are mocking him to the Dolphins. Not that mocks necessarily mean anything, so that would be really interesting. That's fine. They can take Nick Emmanwori. The Bills can take Javon Holland. We'll call it even and kind of move from there. But yeah, very
to your point, to wrap up, this player, over 1,000 snaps in the box over the course of his career, 3-year career, 700 snaps at free safety, 710 snaps. And then 564 in the slot. So yeah, the versatility is great, but for a guy with his size and athleticism, you got to ask yourself, what is he good at?
Yeah.
What is he great at with that athleticism?
And I don't know if there's anything.
Will the NFL coaching make him, great at something aside from just being an athlete? Because at the NFL level, one, it's not just about being an athlete, but it's about being a good football player. And everyone is good at the next level. So I don't know. I can't tell you what, aside from his athleticism, that he's great at anything. And so I don't know what that gets you. If we're talking combine testing, where the grades are going to fall and where he ultimately gets drafted, I don't know. There's a lot of variance to his game, and where he goes, it matters. And that's usually the case for most guys. You can say that, but for this player, I think it absolutely matters the environment and scheme that he plays in, and that defensive coordinator has to be creative with him.
Yep. I'm in lockstep with you. And I came away as I saw a bunch of South Carolina games during the year, and I was very excited to watch his tape, and I came away underwhelmed. Just for his guy who's tested so well and who has all this potential. That's a good way to put it. Like, I don't know if he's great at any one thing. And then it's like, okay, if he's not, can you make him great? Or how do you deploy him to take advantage of that kind of do it all skill set that he has? But it's also like do it all, but also not do anything, if that makes sense. I don't,
A
I'm
lot
just
of these
very,
guys, though, these type of players, especially at the safety position, they don't usually work out.
Isaiah Simmons is the first one that comes to my mind.
Yeah, they don't
That's all
usually
I keep
work
thinking
out. It
about.
sucks because in like, especially guys like us, we're like, "Oh, you could do so much
Yes.
with
Right.
him."
You're
And
right.
then you're just like, "Oh." Maybe that's part of our, like, our perspective and framing of this is, like, on paper, like, oh man, the it's endless, like, what you could do with a
Yes.
guy like this, right? Especially if you're thinking about it from a defensive standpoint and coordinator standpoint, but I've yet to see it consistently work.
Yeah. But also maybe that's why it's so hard because it's like instead of having a menu of like 5 things and to pick one, you have a menu of like 5,000 things. And then it's like, oh my God, I feel overwhelmed. There's too many possibilities.
Yeah.
Maybe it's harder because you've got this guy. Oh, he can be deployed in so many ways. And it's like, oh, yeah, but how do I deploy him? Like, and yeah, it's just, it's an interesting conversation with him. I mean, I'm intrigued to see where he goes, especially with how well that he tested. Another safety on the minds of Bills Mafia and on our minds here in the film room, Malaki Starks,
This your
safety.
guy? This is your guy, huh?
Yeah, I like him this year. I do think yeah, he has some warts, but I just from
Sure.
the time he was a true freshman making plays for this defense and helping lead them to
A
national
lot of big games.
championships.
A lot of
Yeah,
big games.
a lot of big games, a lot of plays and high leverage moments and situations. And I think for me, it's more of if he's used in the more siloed way I would like him to be, I think he's a bit of a force multiplier. And for the Bills defense, I think that could help a little bit. But the work to do pieces, obviously we'll get to it. I think they are significant to a degree. But yeah, Malaki Stark, safety from Georgia.
6'1", 197, 40-yard dash in 4.5. That was a little disappointing. 10-yard split, 151, vertical jump 33. Three-cone drill, also kind of disappointing,
Yeah.
7.26 seconds. I
I did
was
not expect him to test well. Honestly, him running a
sure.
4.5 and having the 3-cone that he did, I was actually afraid it would be slower. So I was decently surprised while being whelmed at the same time. I was worried about that.
He's another guy. The conversation of, okay, how do you get him on the field? Not just
Yeah.
for the Bills, but for most teams, like if you have two solid safeties, is he going to be the third safety? And I think if we're talking about the Bills, this is where maybe he comes into play because I do like him, not even just in and around the box, but coming from depth. I like
Yep.
him. I like he uses his hands really well, whether it's a wide receiver coming to crack down on him or he's in the box and he's facing a tight end or even a puller at times. He's very active with his hands and shedding. If we're talking support against the run and the pass, he's a guy that played a lot in the slot, 271 snaps last year in the slot. But obviously, much like the last player, Nick, is in order to do that, you do have to have a certain level of football IQ and smartness to their game. Like they have to be smart to learn several positions. I think the fact that Starks played in the Georgia defense, which is a lot is asked of those safeties for several years in those big games. He's obviously a smart player. I wrote down he leverages strong communication and zone instincts, quickly shifting focus between receivers and effectively funneling plays to help. And what I mean by that is what they do a lot is kind of like what Ole Miss does is the safeties are deep. They're seeing number one. Okay, number one's doing this. Now I need to get my eyes to number two. They're very good at doing that. And he immediately shifts from one receiver to the next. The problem is when they run a trap coverage, he in the corner jumps that out route. He's supposed to get up over the top, and
Yeah.
sometimes he forgets and he's a little slow to transition. And then there's a big play happening. There were a lot of big plays against him over the years. Starks, we're talking here. And I thought his eye discipline could be better. I think that's his biggest wart is his eye discipline. It lacks at times, and it allows big plays by the offense.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the kind of the eye discipline and how he can just get put out of position by trying to kind of anticipate too much or jump things. He'll get caught flat-footed from time to time.
Right.
Yeah, I think the eye discipline piece, which was such a huge strength for him early on as a true freshman, and I think it waned a little bit as I don't know, as he took more responsibility on or tried to do more in the defense. So I'm hoping that's something that can be reined in or coached through a little bit. And for me with him, he played a lot of that star role, that apex role for Georgia last year, the Brian Branch role from Bama, everything that they do in those defenses. But it was mainly because of injury. Like, naturally, he is more of a deep safety, play in the post, too high type of safety. And if you can have him be that with a guy who you can sprinkle in some man coverage with from time to time, that's where I really like him. Pairing him as, then despite the fact that, he's not a burner because he only runs that 4-5, but his ability to read route distributions, collect, read what's happening from an offensive standpoint, being able to diagnose and process. If you can get him better with his eye discipline and kind of not coach out some of that, overplaying his hand a little bit from time to time, I like the idea of pairing him with a Cole Bishop long-term, or just the idea of him being more of that deep safety because of what he can do from an IQ standpoint, a zone coverage standpoint, a match coverage standpoint. Then he's also got this ability to play man coverage, which is nice. I don't want him in man coverage as an apex. I don't want him as a big nickel. I think, slot receivers are going to give him some trouble from time to time. And I think he's athletic, and I think you had it in some of your notes there. He is athletic, but I find him a bit like stiff-hipped at times, or the verbiage I use is there's a bit of a hitch in his giddy up when he turns to open. And I don't know if it's the hips related or if you literally almost looks like he gets snagged, like his shirt gets caught on something, like it's a little hitch in his giddy up in his hips when he turns. And it's really when he's going from that pedal to turn and he's going vertical, is still able to stay in phase because of his hand usage and some of his athleticism. But that's a concern for me, some of that stiffness and the hip ability. And then a note I had here is that he had multiple quote unquote bad eyes reps in coverage where his eyes misled him, obviously tying into your eye discipline.
Yeah, bad eyes. And I also saw some bad angles. And when you
agreed.
have that top end athleticism or speed, you're not able to make up a bad angle. And that showed a few times, aside from bad eyes, bad angles at times in the run in the pass game. Receiver catches it and he runs at the receiver flat. Receiver just bounces and takes off on him. But again, I think he's a day 2 player. And I think he's gonna be a solid pro. I think with all the warts he has, I think, given the games he's played in and, the production he's had, I think he is a guy that plays many years in the NFL, a lot as a starter eventually, but also even as a backup. I think he's a smart player that he's one of those guys that just has like a 10-year career, like in the blink of an eye, and so I have a mid-second to third round grade on him. I do like him. In the Bills defense, I think it's a good fit for him. But he's not someone like, I don't want to burn a second rounder on him when I know in years past, the coaching staff has done a good job of coaching up that position. And so maybe they could get more out of him. But I prefer a little more athleticism aside from what he brings, on the field. So, but a fun player to watch. Again, a lot of big games. So a lot of the games you watch on him, they're big games, and he is making plays.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a 2 on him. He's my safety 1. But again, similar from a conversation perspective from the bad, fixing the bad eyes and the eye discipline. Big thing for me, I said he has to clean up his angles to the ball, especially coming forward. And also as a run defender, as a safety, coming from depth or even just in general, he fits the run as a tackler and as a force player, I think overall responsibly, but he isn't overly physical. He's more of kind of like a catch tackler than he is like, oh, he came up and just stuck the hell out of that guy. I think he's more free than strong type of safety, but I think he can do like a mix of both. I was trying to find this in my note. I put, he's a fine tackler, but not a detonator. I'd like more pop or force in contact from my safeties when coming from depth. But I think what he can do from a coverage standpoint, again, can benefit this defense or a team. If he was the pick at 30, I would hope that they answered all of the defensive line questions in free agency. Like if he's the pick at 30, then that means I would like the Bills got DJ Jones. They got Fowler or Hoyt. They also signed a pretty good corner. So that way they're okay. We can go safety at 30 and corner with our first, second round pick and defensive line with our third. Like if he creeps in, that's what I'm looking for. But I do have a 2 on him, to your point.
No, he's a solid player, and we're running out of time here. And so real quick, just to kind of wrap up the combine winners, We did a lot of defensive guys. We did all defensive guys. And I know a lot of you guys are clamoring for some offensive weapons for Josh. Is there anyone at wide receiver that stood out to you that either, you watched film on him or you're like, okay, that makes sense. Or like, oh, I got to go watch film on this guy because he stood out at the combine this past weekend.
Someone, you mentioned this earlier when we talked about like, watching guys on tape and them doing stuff that made you go like, huh, like I didn't think that. Low hanging fruit. Matthew Golden, who I like, I did not see sub 4.4 speed from him. And not only sub 4.4, he ran a 4.29.
Yeah, that was wild.
I just did not see that. And I think it's partly schematic, like you mentioned, he's running glance routes and RPO stuff and things underneath. And there's not a lot of opportunity for him to just, separate and run and really open up the engine. But I guess in a good way, I didn't think he was slow, but I just didn't see 4.29. He's somebody I really like. He's just so smooth and fluid with how he moves. And again, maybe it's because he's so smooth and fluid that you just don't see that speed or think of it. But yeah, I was not expecting that time. I was expecting like, 4.42, maybe 4.45, 4.29 blew me away.
Ideal size, smooth releases. I think he's a prototype X and at the next level, methodical route running, very high football IQ. And the funny thing about, the Texas offense and Golden altogether is like, there's some plays like that where he's got great body control, especially at the catch point, along the boundary, things like that over the middle.
Which you need with Quinn Ewers throwing some ducks every once in a while.
Right. That offense, obviously they have dogs everywhere. They have great players at all their positions. And so they kind of just run Steve Sarkisian's offense and then, okay, who's making a play? Okay, your turn. Who's making a play? And then, but when they needed a big play in a big game, and whether it's the games against Georgia, like they went to him and they schemed things up for him on 3rd and 4th down situations, which is why he always made those big plays in critical situations. And you see a bunch of them in his highlight reels and plays like this, where he's just coming back to the ball, adjusting to the pass and bringing it in down the field. I have a feeling like if you were to talk ball with him, he comes across as a smart guy. I forget who posted the presser of him at the podium, but he just sounded so smart. Like it shows on the field. He's another guy where it shows on the field. If you need a big play in a big moment, Texas, they went to him, and I could see him doing that at the next level, having played in these big games in his career at Texas.
Yeah, if you look down the stretch, 2 of his final 3 games against Georgia, 12 targets, 8 catches, 162 yards. The bowl game against Arizona State in the playoff, 10 targets, 7 catches, 149 yards, and a touchdown. He really was someone, especially with, his running mate there, Isaiah Bond, inconsistencies with injuries and just maybe some other things on top of it as well. And Golden was kind of the stabilizing force in that wide receiver room. And, you even showed that play kind of doing the dirty work to help Bond get clear on that low red zone touchdown. Yeah, he just does.
Always does it.
Yes, he does a lot of professional things. Him and Mukuba from Ohio State are 2 receivers that I just think do a lot of the dirty and a lot of the good, and guys that I think will be good wide receivers in the NFL for like 12 years. And the vet that fans want on their team to try and get them a ring towards the end of their career if they haven't already got one. And Golden just does a lot of good things on tape. You mentioned, I don't want to drill down too much on him and reiterate, but I just really, I guess, again, in a good way, I'm going to go back and I feel like I need to watch every Texas game because I'm like, I need to see the 4.29 on tape. I need to see you pulling away from someone in some way. And not that it's bad. I was just like, really? Like, did somebody hit the button a 10th of a second early? It's still right now, I'm shocked by it.
Right. And there's not, again, this is the player we're talking about, like, like I need to go back and watch his film because there weren't many plays or situations where, he was pulling away. There was that rep against Arizona State where he takes that inbreaker out and he has the middle of the field and he's in the clear and he doesn't hit the alley with that speed. And when you're running, if you're running that fast at the combine, it should have been an easy touchdown. And you just didn't see it. So I a lot of my notes when it came to things he can work on is like, hey, releases, underdeveloped releases versus press, leaves him vulnerable against the defender who's aggressive against him. And a lot of that is because he wasn't separating. He was allowing these guys to get into him. Even though he had 58 catches for 987 yards and 9 touchdowns, there was a lot left be desired for him. We're talking that speed, because it didn't show. I'll agree with everyone. Like, I did not see that on film.
Even his 10-yard split was 1.49. Like, that's very good. I didn't feel like I saw that either. And I just, again, like, power to him. Like, he made himself some money with that combine.
Yeah.
But, and again, the tape is good, and there's a lot to like with him. I echo your sentiments about like the releases and kind of how that ties into his overall route running and stem work as well, which is an area that I think he excels in. But yeah, I'm still right now just like going through all the games that I watch, because I watched stuff for Bond, I watched stuff for Golden, I watched certain defenses play against Texas, and there was never a moment where I was like, "Whoa, this guy's gonna fly." And not that everyone is the same, but like juxtapose it with Worthy last year for Texas, where it was like, "Oh, okay, like that makes sense. He can fly." I mean, he's also weighs the weight of a feather. But you could see even A.D. Mitchell at times, I felt like opened it up more and was faster than Golden. And he was not timed faster than Golden, which I'm just still a little shocked right now. But again, power to him. He made some awesome money with that.
Just a few of my notes. Like the first note from, again, I watched, let's see, Michigan, Florida, Georgia twice, Arizona State. Athleticism or explosiveness don't jump off the screen. Doesn't have the quickness to avoid opponent's punch near the line of scrimmage. Breaks aren't that sudden, but there's a smoothness to them. There's no doubt. Man cover corners can mirror him pretty easily. He doesn't threaten the leverage of the DBs due to lack of suddenness. So yeah, this is a guy that we have to go back and watch, because there weren't many situations. Again, a lot of some of it is scheme related. You know, they weren't asking him to do a lot of these things that you're going to see these situations pop up, but the few times they did, you're like, I'm not seeing it. And so he's definitely a guy I have to go back. Again, I have a early day 2 grade on him, so I still have a high grade on him. It didn't match up. It didn't match up what he did at the combine to his film.
Yeah, I have an early to mid 2 on him. And just to kind of give you one of my notes that tied with it, yeah, I wrote smooth, fluid athlete, smooth, fluid route runner, not a lot of sharpness or suddenness to his game, can make up for it with deception and pacing, has some snap out of his breaks, but overall, not suddenness, not a lot of sharpness. I'm still perplexed. But again, power to him for that 40. And power to all you folks for powering through us with this episode. We're rolling through. But again, this is the time of year where I feel like these episodes go a little longer for us because we get into, or maybe I'll speak for myself here. I feel like these episodes are important because whether it's free agency, whether it's draft talk, this is the peak time of year where everybody loves to highlight scout and talk about it as if they know what's up with a player because they watched a 2-minute highlight or they watched a game one time or they heard Daniel Jeremiah like somebody or something. And so I think these episodes are important for us to show and also speak to a lot of these prospects and players that Bills Mafia have their eye on. And I don't want to say like necessarily we're here to kind of like set the narrative straight, but you know, for us speaking on these guys, it takes a lot to go in to be accurate with these evaluations. And I feel like that's reflected in the length of these episodes.
Yeah, we went super long today, but again, we try to cover a lot of these players from the combine that, would fit into the Bills scheme, that would fit into the Bills typical archetypes, and maybe even some that don't really do that. But if the Bills shift, like we've talked about the last few weeks, maybe you see him become a target for them in the draft. So obviously, free agency is first. That's right around the corner. If you're interested in the Bills targets on both sides of the ball in free agency, we covered that in the last 2 episodes. So take a look at that. But if you're full throttle into the draft, you have plenty of content just from this episode. And we honestly couldn't even get to everybody because of the length of that we went when it came to the defensive side of the ball, which we hope that the Bills address in free agency and also in the draft.
Absolutely. And if there is someone draft related you folks want us to dive into or a position group to dive into, we the off season, even though it's in, draft time or free agency time, we're always looking for, additional things to cover or some fun topics or things that you folks are really clamoring for. So anything and everything, get at us on Twitter. Eric's at the Cover One handle, so at Cover and the number one. His individual is at Eric J. Turner. I'm on Twitter at pro__ant. If you don't have those socials, but you're here on YouTube, leave us a comment here on YouTube. If you are on Reddit, we post these episodes to Reddit. Cool. Comment on Reddit. Let us know something you want us to cover there. We also have the Cover One Film Room handle on Twitter. It's at Cover One Film Room. So cover the number one, FILMROOM. No underscores, no dashes, no numbers, just at Cover One Film Room. We'll be posting stats and film clips and highlighting pieces from our, Twitter accounts in these episodes that are related to these episodes, free agency wise, draft wise, the advanced metrics to film, all of that stuff for you folks. So again, multiple ways to get at us. If you have questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, want us to cover something, let us know. Thank you very much for tuning in to this episode of the Film Room. We hope to see you next week for free agency film breakdown, where hopefully the Bills do a lot of their moves on Monday so we can watch the tape Monday and Tuesday and not just wait until watch them be silent. And then like Wednesday at like 4:30, it's just a flurry. And I'm waiting for that to happen to us, but hopefully they operate in a way that'll help us out.
Yeah, let's hope, man. And again, it's going to be fluid. So if that does happen, there's a possibility that we may have to postpone it. So that we can get all of our, research and film and all that together. Because as you can see, this was a 2-hour long episode. A lot went into this episode when it comes to watching all of these games of film, compiling it, editing it, getting the stats for it. A lot went into this, and props to Joe DeRosa, our producer, for helping out with some of the stats and the pre and post production stuff of the Film Room. But again, thank to you guys for tuning in to this episode, and please hit that like button, leave us a comment, let us know who you want us to break down, whether it's in free agency or the draft. And again, big thanks to tuning into this in-depth episode of the Combine winners, because it took a lot of work to get this out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a nice way also to kind of set the stage a little bit for our draft coverage that you'll get here in the Film Room going forward. And yeah, it takes a lot of time to watch all, because also too, like for these games, we're usually watching anywhere from 4 to 6 games for guys. So it's not like, oh, Matthew Golden, let me watch his best game against Arizona State or whatever, and that's it. We're watching a lot. So imagine however many players we talked about here, you're watching anywhere from 4 to 6 games for each player. So it is a lot of time. So we appreciate the support from you folks. If you're watching on YouTube, drop a like, turn on notifications for the Cover One Film Room playlist. If you're listening on the audio platforms, please rate, review, and subscribe to the Cover One Film Room channel. Get at us on socials. Subscribe to the Cover One channel as a whole on audio or on YouTube. We have you covered pretty much every single day of the week with various levels of Bills content for you folks. Thank you very much for tuning in. We will see you next week for another episode of the Film Room, hopefully on Wednesday, because the Bills did us a favor and announced all their free agent signings on Monday. Also, for those who don't know, Monday starting at noon, that's when you'll start to see all the announcements of signings start to trickle through. Nothing is official until Wednesday starting at 4 o'clock when the new league year starts. But Monday is your big news day. You'll start seeing stuff hitting right at noon in terms of so-and-so has agreed in principle to a deal with yada, 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 but nothing's official until Wednesday at 4. We hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well and staying safe. Be kind to one another. Take care of one another. We'll see you next week. Godspeed. I'm Anthony Prohaska. That's Eric Turner. This has been the Cover One Film Room, and go Bills.